Cool. Great. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Okay, everyone. We're going to get started here. Welcome to the CHSS cover letters webinar, or as it was advertised, the cover letter writing workshop, if you will. I'm your host, Jeff Poulos. Hopefully, some of you know me. Whether it may not be in person, but it most likely will be via email. I'm sure you've seen my name attached to many emails blowing up your inbox, so I apologize about that. But we're always here to convey important and useful information for you for career and professional development. Throughout this webinar, we're going to be talking about best practices and really taking a deeper dive into cover letters and their usefulness, why write them, right? I know it's not everyone's favorite task really when it comes to searching for jobs. If you do have any questions, just hang tight. There will be some time at the end for some Q&A and stuff. So, if you have something in front of you, just, write it on the side, and we will come back to it, and there'll be some time at the end to answer it. So I'm going to do my best to make this as engaging and as fun as possible, if you will. And I hope you guys find it very useful too. So without further ado, we will get started here on the cover letters writing webinar. Okay. Whoop. There we go. I should be hitting next slide here. There it is. Okay. All right. So probably wondering why I have a photo of a camera on this slide, right? Well, really it's for two reasons. So similar to snapping a photo, right? The cover letter is a snapshot of how well you can write. It's your ability to showcase your writing skills. So more specifically though, the cover letter shows your ability to articulate the job, why you're the best candidate for the job. So the letter itself should be short, sweet, to the point. It's sort of like the concept less is more. It's like when you convey a good essay, right? So, and I hate to, use the word essay, but, that's really what the showcasing of the cover letter is your writing skills. But another point why I have this up here is the letter is reflective of your sincerity. So it really shows how interested you are in the position, right? And my point being there is, let's say you were a recruiter, right? Or if you were an employer, you're more likely to go with the candidate that has, let's say, gone above and beyond and has submitted a cover letter along with their resume versus someone that just submitted their resume for the position, right? So it shows me you took the time, you looked up that employer, you looked up that organization, that company, you studied them, looked up their interests, right? See what their internet presence is like, maybe see what their LinkedIn presence is like, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on, and wove that into your, cover letter as well. So, right, it's just a snapshot as to what you bring to the table and kind of highlights your written skills. So, one thing that I want to bring up, which is on this next slide here, is what says employers, right? So this is a screenshot that is taken from an organization that a lot of professionals such as myself in the field follow. It's called NACE for short. It's the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Say that 10 times fast. They responded to what's called the Job Outlook 2019 survey. We don't have the 2021 yet, but that's in the works. And that's what this screenshot is from. So it assesses what employers across the US are looking for in newly hired students. And as you could see in the top, number one, communication skills, written skills, right? Not to say the other ones aren't important. Of course, they're just as much, heavily weighted and important. But your written skills, where does that really come through? right? That comes through your cover letter, your ability to articulate the letter. So some other points about the survey said that beyond a strong GPA on a student's resume, the thing employers most wanted from a potential new hire is demonstration of written communication skills. So also, as you could see, problem solving skills and the ability to work as part of a team rank second and third on the list. So, those are some attributes that you may want to incorporate into your cover letter, but maybe your resume, right? That's a question to ask yourself. And I know we're not going to talk about the resume today. This webinar is only for discussing the cover letter, the ins and outs of the cover letter. But ask yourself and take note of this slide, how are these attributes linked to my resume, right? How do they weave into my experiences? How can I tell a narrative from my experiences that is in line with one of these attributes, right? Because once we start having that sort of mindset, then we're really going to get the employer's attention, and you're going to really position yourself to be a very, very strong candidate for whatever that position may be, internship, whatever the situation is. So you're probably asking yourself, Jeff, where do I begin? Where do I begin? And one thing you're going to notice as a side note throughout this presentation is there will be a lot of memes and GIFs, if you will, to keep you engaged. I find them funny. Hopefully you do too. But where do you begin? One place to begin, right, with the cover letter. We're not just going to dive right into writing right away, just yet, is we're going to look at the job description. Okay? So let's say you find a job, or the internship, I should say, description. Look at it. Take a deeper dive into it, right? And I'm not saying you have to do this for each position, but maybe print it out, right? I find that's a really helpful strategy to do. Read it thoroughly, print it out, and what we're going to do from this is we're going to look at keywords. So not as intensely as Patrick and SpongeBob here, but we're going to scan for keywords. That's kind of where the connection to this GIF comes in. So I think in this episode they were scanning for, this is where they realized I think a game map was not really a real treasure map, but off topic. Anywho, so what I did for this webinar to have you understand an example is I took a real job that I found, and I looked at the job description and I highlighted what I thought were keywords. Okay. So through this example, it's through a higher ed lens, but with a social media twist. So as you could see, this position is looking for some sort of PR related person, specifically the title, right, which is the first thing I highlighted, social media and public relations coordinator for a university, right? So what I did was I looked at those keywords, and what I highlighted what I thought were keywords. So creative strategy, brand awareness, engagement, right? So they're mentioning not only, right, are they mentioning social media, they're mentioning specific social medias. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, seeing research, community building, and to take a step back for a second, again, and as a reminder too, these are keywords that I'm going to want to refer to when I start to sit down and craft my cover letter, right? So, and one just shameless plug here, maybe I want to take this a step further and look up that university's page or that employer's page that best connects to this, right? Especially, right, this is just a power move, especially if this is a social media related position and it's going to be calling for me to do social media related responsibilities and tasks. I want to see what their social media presence is like right now, right? So I'm going to even take a step further and look at what their presence is like out there. Maybe who's doing their social media? How can I make it better? Right? And this is where when you start taking that sort of approach, you're really taking a deep dive into going above and beyond and crafting a strong cover letter, if you will. So this is kind of like your cheat sheet if you think about it that way. You're looking at these keywords and sifting through them. So I did the same thing for the job description, as well, continued here. I couldn't fit everything on one slide, so I had to break it up. So some more keywords. I'm seeing a theme as well, right? So research was on the previous slide. I'm seeing research again. I'm seeing editing, online marketing, writing samples. Okay, so maybe now, that's going to be asked of me to submit some writing samples. So that's something to prepare for. We want to make sure that we have a good, maybe one of our, a segment or a kind of clip of our best paper that we wrote, something like that in a class that we did really well in. So things like that to take note of, right? So we want to ensure that our cover letter is near perfect, especially if you're applying for a job that calls for editing and critiquing too, and making sure that you're representing an organization through various social media outlets. So, right, that's kind of step one. We're looking at the job description, we're highlighting those keywords, we're really dissecting it. But now we're going to transition and let's talk about addressing the letter and really its 4-paragraph approach, so to speak. And one thing that we're going to talk about right here is, before we get into the paragraph approach, right, is our salutation. How we're going to greet this individual. Who are we writing to? Okay, in this letter. So I'm gonna kind of, I'm not gonna pose it, but I'm gonna go through each one of those bullets and kind of talk about something that's going on there. One thing I always see all too often is bullet number 1, to whom it may concern, with a comma. Okay. And you may find online that a lot of cover letter templates, I mean, you'll find cover letter templates, resume templates out the wazoo online, but a lot of cover letter templates are using to whom it may concern still. To me, that's very antiquated. It's very blah. It's like boring, right? I don't know. You wanna add some flavor and spice it up a little bit. Let's try and get that person's name who we're writing to, right? It's a little too formal for me, and we're a little too casual if we're using a comma, right? So to me, I think to whom it may concern, I don't recommend it. It's a little lame, possibly a little outdated. And comma for a letter, we're not using a comma, we're going to be using a colon. Okay, so moving on to bullet number 2. Dear Human Resources. So this is reasonable. I'm okay with this one. I could be friends with this one. Okay. This is very straightforward. It's professional. It's has good punctuation, right? It's appropriate. Colon is regarded as more formal, like I said earlier. I recommend using this one if you're unsure as to who you're writing to. Like, let's say you hit a roadblock and you really looked up as deep as you could to see who's this letter going to be going to. I'm not too sure. Then I'm okay with this. Another variation of this, as an honorable mention, if you will, is Dear Hiring Manager. I'm okay with that as well. Dear Search Committee, maybe too, if it's going to be a few people you're writing to. But this is a safe one. This is reasonable. I'm okay with this. Number 3, Dear Mr. Portnoy. I'm just using a kind of a random name. This one is acceptable too. Okay. When job seeking, we may not get the exact name, right, as to who we're writing to, but every once in a while we do have the individual that we are writing to. We may be provided with that knowledge. So in case, if you do know the person that you're writing to, and with this specific example, if they're a male, and we researched and we know that they're a male, then I'm okay with this. And we can address that person as Dear Mr. Portnoy, right? And that's if you are absolutely 100% aware that that's who you're writing to and you're confident in that. Lastly, the last bullet, that would be Dear Jordan Petrucci. This is an example where we're unsure if this could be a man or a woman because Jordan may be a unisex name, right? Shout out to those friends or family that you have that are Jordans that, you know, are male or female. So in this case, if we don't know, it's recommended that we don't use a Mr. or Mrs. and we write the person's full name. It's a pro move. I think it's a safe move. If you want here too, an honorable mention, if you want to just keep it pro and safe and not use a Mr. or Mrs. or a title, we could use the person's entire full name there too as well. So that would be the salutations aspect of it. Okay, now we're moving ahead, forging ahead to the first paragraph. Okay, the first paragraph is identifying the job title and where you found it. Okay, so your first sentence is basically your objective. And I understand some folks out there, possibly even on this webinar, totally cool, use an objective section on a resume. Okay. But to me, my recommendation is that is outdated, right? So quick little sidebar history lesson. I found that objective sections were really used primarily, you know, when folks were faxing their resumes into places or, you know, sending them in via newspaper clippings, how they found out about it. I only recommend using an objective if you're going to take your resume, tailor it to a specific networking event, such as a career fair, things like that. But this is where that objective section translates to, right? The first sentence here is the objective section. I'm writing to apply for the social media public relations coordinator position as listed on your employment opportunities page, or right, maybe as listed on indeed.com or in your human resources page, right? There's going to be different variations of that first sentence because you're stating the exact job title and then you're listing how you found out about it. I'm seeking to apply for the social media, you know, and public relations coordinator position. That's just another example there too. And I also want to mention that offering a sentence or two after the objective is key. I think it's essential. So you'll notice throughout the cover letter, kind of again, similar to an essay, everything should tie together, right? So I really like this second sentence after the objective that says, you know, this posting closely matches my interests and skills, in particular, my ability to orchestrate comprehensive social media brand awareness and engagement. Okay. Another example there is maybe saying something like this. I strongly believe my background in social media through my internship at X company, as well as my academic coursework in Y and Z class. I don't know the name of the class, but this is where you would insert it. Make me a strong candidate for this position. Okay. So now you're providing that hook and you're like, okay, you get the reader's attention. Now I'm interested. Okay. You're mentioning your most relevant or applicable position. You're sprinkling maybe some academic titles of coursework in there, which is a great move as well. And then you're setting up that next paragraph. Okay. Which would transition us to the second paragraph. And the most important paragraph, okay? This is where some folks have trouble with the cover letter. Okay, so the second paragraph is we're not going to talk about us off the bat. We're going to talk about the employer. So this is the most important paragraph because this is where you're going to reveal your knowledge about the employer. So in essence, you're talking about them and not about you just yet. So let's connect this idea back to the camera, right, in slide 2. I know we've talked about a lot so far, but remember the camera, the snapshot, right? It's that sincerity piece. This is where that sincerity piece comes in. How much you care about the position and the overall application. It's the wow piece. So it's not just about us as job seekers, it's about the employer. So this is a great example here. Having researched both your website and LinkedIn profile, I realized the university's main area of impact revolves around the development of highly responsible social media channels. Succeeding in this rapidly evolving field is elusive to some colleges, but not for the university or whatever, the college or employer would be. Recognition at the annual Social Strategist Awards affirms your place as the higher education industry leader in social media. So, right, this is a really good paragraph that you can mention maybe the employer or the university's mission statement, their philosophy, brand awareness, or something the employer was recognized for by their department. And overall, again, most importantly, the purpose of this paragraph is twofold. One, just to summarize, reveal your knowledge about the employer. Two, it opens up again the idea of having the conversation, right? We're making it welcome. I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, wow, snap. This person really took the time and looked us up. Pro move, another power move. They looked us up on LinkedIn and checked our LinkedIn presence. They saw that we were given an award for something in our field or in the industry. I mean, this is just something that is going to further have me reading along and is a hook in that way. So we have our salutation, our first paragraph, second paragraph. What'd I say? What did I say? This is going to have GIFs and memes throughout it. So we're halfway there. Halfway there, okay? It's not that bad. Shouldn't be too stressful, right? So now the third paragraph, right, is we're talking about us, okay? So this is where we're going to talk about what was that internship, right, position that I said, or those classes you mentioned. It's asking yourself those questions like, what is important for the reader to know? What are your top 2 experiences you want to draw from? And I use top 2, I use that loosely. It doesn't have to be 2. If you want to live on the edge and go 3, that's fine. But again, right, we're not going to word vomit in a way, and we're not going to really mention everything that we've done on our resume and why it is applicable to this job. You really want to highlight what are those top, like I said, 2 to 3 that are the most important experiences that you want to show to the reader. And the reason why that is because you don't want to reveal your cards right away, right? You want to give them something to think about. And you want to be able to refer to other things on your resume that you didn't mention in your cover letter that speak to who you are too. So this is where you really want to shine a light on yourself, highlight some skills you have that the employer needs or that the position calls for. So, right, here's an example. This position requires a big picture mindset and orientation I employed while managing both a part-time job and the academic requirements of a Bachelor of Arts in English, right? Shameless plug, that's a really good thing to mention to employers too. I know there are a lot of folks out there, possibly in this webinar or other peers that you may know that are juggling a lot aside from earning a full-time degree. Definitely something worthy to mention, 100%. This experience further developed my ability to prioritize responsibilities and interact with individuals across various teams and projects. Given the opportunity, I would design a well-organized student campaign, taking care to research the most profitable engagement times to post university content. My resume further outlines my qualifications, including projects related to online marketing and research data collection. So a few points here, right? Keep in mind we're mentioning those keywords. We're doing our best to mention them, which I'll talk about later on. We're going to compare and see how well I did between highlighting the keywords and mentioning them in the letter. But also keep in mind the paragraph concludes itself. It's like any good essay. It connects to the larger idea and does not leave the reader hanging, right? We don't want to just end it abruptly, not a cliffhanger. We're having that last sentence tie back to the topic or to the topic sentence, right? My resume further outlines these qualities, these attributes. So and one thing to keep in mind, right? Earning a position or an internship, a job, it's about competition. So really, this is not the time to be humble. It's great if you are humble. It's an awesome quality and characteristic. But now's the time to put your best foot forward. And this is where we're really going to do that with this third paragraph. So again, right, paragraph 2, just a quick recap. Paragraph 2 is about the employer. It's about them. Paragraph 3 now is about you. Okay? All right. So lastly, the fourth paragraph, really not so much a paragraph, it's just a quick brief closing. And this comes, I can't tell you, in so many different shapes and sizes, so don't take this one to heart. This is just an example here. I always say this is a small paragraph or a way to close out, if you will. So one way to do this is the example. I'm able to interview at your convenience. If you feel a match exists, please contact me at, if you haven't realized that's not a real number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not even going to read the rest. 7, 8. I might as well read it. 7896. There we go. And that's not a real email address as well. So don't be emailing that. I look forward to the possibility of discussing how I can advance the university's social media initiatives, right? And I actually do want to read another example that I've seen from time to time in last paragraphs. I find this one very appropriate as well. I'm confident you'll find me as a positive coordinator who will be a great asset to the social media team and university. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to consider my application. Okay, so really, again, with this, we're just inviting them in or closing it out. We're also tailoring it and referring to that job, the exact job title too, and we're signing off, right? Sincerely is a pro move. Cannot go wrong with sincerely. Sincerely should be your best friend on the cover letter. We're not going to use from. We're not going to use best. Super too casual. We're not just going to go into signing our name to. Some sort of dismount is needed. Kind regards I find to be a little too casual as well. Those are more email sign-offs, if you will. Another little pro move, not necessarily needed, but cool if you want to do, is we can include the LinkedIn public profile here as well. For those that are familiar, LinkedIn has a feature, right? If you're on there with your profile, that's awesome. It has a feature that you can brand your public profile address. And that pretty much tells the reader that they don't need to have a LinkedIn to see that link, and they can click it, learn more about you. As you know, LinkedIn is a very, very useful networking tool, but there's no page limit on LinkedIn. So just a little pro move there. So even though you can include it there, it may already be up top on your cover letter, right? It may be already up top on your resume too. So so just something that you can include, totally not needed, but we can definitely talk offline to those who want to learn more about LinkedIn. So, which is a nice little transition here, which I'm actually, Adam, I know you're on the line. I'm going to defer to you for a second, if that's okay. If you can actually gather the intel of the answers as to our students that are tuning in. So to those that are out there listening, where do you think your LinkedIn public profile address should go? I kind of gave it away.
That's a good one, Jeff.
I gave it away big time. So this is a no-brainer, hopefully. But once you start seeing the answers come in, Adam, then I'll just move along for the sake of time. So where do you think you should place your LinkedIn public profile address that I just was talking about?
Okay, we're getting a couple answers now. Jessica's participated. Come on, guys. I can see that you're out there. I'm not going to call on you.
We see that you're tuning in. Okay.
Well,
Once we have a, do we have a majority?
We do have one individual.
Okay.
Maybe some of the other folks are grabbing a snack or something, and we'll give that to them for sure. But
okay.
Jessica, you've done very well. She has answered correctly, Jeff.
So she has answered D.
Correct. Well done, Jessica.
Well done. Well done. All the above. Yes. So definitely fair game just to go back to include your LinkedIn public profile address in the email signature, resume and cover letter, business card. All of those are totally fair game. So well done. So now our last few minutes here in the webinar, I just want to go back, and I know this is very text heavy, but I want to go back on this slide and show you comparing the job description along with my actual cover letter that I wrote that we just went through paragraph by paragraph. Okay. So as you can see, I highlighted the keywords like I discussed earlier on from the job description, the qualifications portion, and we're comparing it against the letter. Okay. So I have the job title mentioned, brand awareness, social media. I'm mentioning the university. I'm mentioning the Bachelor of Arts in English. One thing that's maybe striking you that I did not mention, okay, is maybe I want to throw something in there about community building. I didn't really mention that. I also didn't mention that I'm willing to submit some writing samples at the end. That's something that I probably should go back and include in the cover letter. More specifically, right, I'm mentioning social media, but I'm not mentioning those three top dogs, if you will, of social media: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You know, that's something that I maybe want to mention too. So similar to the resume, right, the cover letter should be incorporating keywords from the job description into that letter. Your resume should be doing the same thing. You should be incorporating keywords from the job description into your letter. So it's definitely something that, you know, I'm taking notice of it in this example. I would go back, make those tweaks, address those concerns. And it's only, you know, ensuring that I'm putting my best foot forward, right? So definitely something to think about. And that being said, and this is where I was hinting at with my previous point, is that it's not pro to use the same cover letter for multiple employers, right? Because that would be silly. Like I said in the second paragraph, we're talking about the employer, we're talking about them. That second paragraph, as well as the rest of the letter, but mostly that second paragraph, is going to be changing each time you apply to a job, right? Because each employer is different. Each employer has their own, you know, different identities, different qualities, characteristics, you know, things of that nature, different mission statement, may have a stronger online presence, may not. So that's always going to change. And as you get further along and more seasoned in your field and industry one day, that third paragraph when you're talking about yourself is going to change too, right? Because again, we don't want to list everything we've done in that paragraph under the sun. We really want to speak to what were our top experiences that best relate or that are best transferable to that position. What skills that you have from those experiences that the employer needs. And that's what's really going to be highlighted in that third paragraph. So again, the cover letter, simply put, is the handshake to the resume. I don't know if anyone's a big Toy Story fan out there. I'm a huge Toy Story fan. Awesome, awesome story all around. Spike is a doofus, but think of it as the handshake to the resume. It's something that's needed. Depending on certain industries, it may not be needed. I should rephrase that a little differently, but it further provides intel as to who you are. It highlights your writing skills, and really it just goes hand in hand with the resume. So one example being, you know, if you encounter a job or an internship that has that bubble that says on the position or the posting, cover letter optional, we're not going to skip over that and take the easy way out. Anyone could submit a job description or a job application with just their resume. But on the other side of it, if I'm reviewing those applications and those candidates, and I see the people that submitted, you know, a letter versus those that didn't, I'm more likely to go with the ones that submitted a letter, right? Going above and beyond. As Buzz Lightyear would say, look at that connection to infinity and beyond. There you go. So that is a wrap on our cover letter webinar. And right now I'm going to defer to Adam again. Adam is the gentleman that's helping me behind the scenes, if you will. And we want to open it up to any questions or comments that you may have in regards to cover letters.
Yeah, please. Any Q&A, please type in your questions and we'll address them as well as we can. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And we have a few minutes, so.
Okay, our first question has come in, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go over how to structure the header/letterhead of the cover letter? For instance, do we need to include our mailing address?
Yeah, that's a great point. So there's a lot of cover letter templates out there that do go over that and go into detail there. But that will, to answer your question, that is normally addressed in the header up top. So what I mean by that, and I'll explain it further, is the same header you're using for your resume, right? That in that resume header that has your address, that has your contact information, the best way to contact you, whether it be cell phone, email, things like that, your name. I strongly recommend and advise you use that same header that you're using for your resume for your cover letter. So that's one point there. Another point is this is not needed, but if you want to, an added touch is to include the employer's address in the top of the cover letter. Keep in mind with this, I think this was, again, a bit of an old school mentality, including that address there as a formality when job searching was not, when the internet wasn't around with job searching, to be honest. Now that the internet is a leading provider to job seekers, and that we're applying to jobs through online portals that are going through scanning systems, the letter's being received. It's going through a system, and it's somewhere on the other side of HR. It is being received. It's being documented. So not needed, but if you do want to take it a step further as a pro move and include the address, I think it can't hurt. That would be the employer's address, just to recap that. But that was a great question. Yeah.
And I think too, Jeff, the question asks, do we need to include our street address? I know it was mentioned mailing address, but I'm wondering if you can expand on that.
Yeah, that's a great question too. Not necessarily. I only recommend including just the town and state. Just gives the reader and the employer a geographical sense as to where you're coming from. But exact address is not needed. So yeah, just that's a really good question.
So we have about another minute or so. We've only had one question, and I can see that some folks are still on the webinar. No question is a bad question. If you have an individual question about your resume, your cover letter, as
Mhm.
this webinar is focusing on, by all means, now's the time to ask.
And again, I should plug as well real quick that we do have a cover letter guideline accessible to you through Hire Red Hawk. So if you go to Hire Red Hawk in the resources tab, in the document library tab, which will drop down after you hit the button resources, it's called CHSS cover letter guideline. Again, it's a guideline. It's not a template because cover letters are different and maybe structured different, but it goes into the same detail as this webinar did with how you can create your cover letter, what you should be including in each paragraph, so on and so forth. And as long as you have, Adobe, it should download as a PDF. You could save it and then refer to it as you're creating and crafting your cover letter.
Okay, we have another question. Thank you for submitting this. I'm planning to move and will be looking for jobs in the state that I want to move to. Should I address that within my cover letter?
That's a really good question. Uh, yes. Yes, I believe so. As to where to address that, I would say at the end, that you're seeking to explore some options and you're willing to move closer. Um, and I think addressing it too is key because, right, if you don't address it and you just were to create a cover letter, then it shows to the reader that, okay, here's a person that's applying to a job that lives far away, but doesn't really talk about it at all in the letter. Um, so definitely, up to you that you can address it at the end that, if given the opportunity, I'm willing to discuss, in a phone interview or a phone conversation with you, uh, that I am willing to relocate or that will be relocating closer to your address. I wouldn't use that, I mean, super word for word. I'm just kind of paraphrasing right now. Um, but yeah, I think most importantly, addressing it is better than not addressing it. And then just minor, you don't have to go into detail, but just saying it is better. And then you can have that conversation should you feel comfortable once you connect, with them in a phone interview or an interview, in-person interview too.
Okay, Jeff, I think that's about it. I don't see any other questions.
All right. Uh, well, thank you all for attending. You will be sent momentarily a survey just to, uh, just as a follow-up, if you will. Included in that note too will be our other webinars that are up and coming within the next month. So definitely you could check those out. We recommend, like we've been saying, to RSVP for them. This way you have it on your radar too. So thank you all for attending today, and I hope you all stay safe and healthy out there.